You can start. Welcome, Rio. Welcome, everyone. This is Rio's presentation.
This is so music department styles. Yes, okay. No, awesome. Cool. Okay. I'm going to flip to my other screen. So I've kind of lost you guys, but hopefully I can just see you out of the sight. Yeah. Okay. Me inoe tātou. I might just do a little karakia before we start, if that's cool. And one that's kind of apt, I guess, for things that have been happening around the motu recently and today. So, whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kinekina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, kia hi ake ana te atākura, he teo, he huka, he hauhu, te hei Māori ora. Kia ora koutou. Yeah. Ko tongariro te maunga roto aira te roto. Taupo te moana, hi kairo ki tongariro te hapū, Tuwharetoa te iwi, te Arawa te waka, te hiuhiu te tangata te hei Māori ora. Ki ngā tini aitua, ko we atu rā ki te pō, haere atu rā e moi. Nō reira ki ngā hunga ora, tēnā koutou, ki ngā kaiwhakahaere, Pauline, tēnā koe, me te ropu o MENZA, tēnā koutou, and to everyone here, tēnā koutou katoa. Ko Rio Hemopo tōku ingoa. My name is Rio Hemopo-Hunuki. I'm based here in Rotorua these days. Thank you to MENZA, Pauline, everyone who's made it in this afternoon. I know it's a hot day after school. So, yeah. For today, I'm going to speak, I better start my timer, for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then we'd love to get into a bit of a kōrero with you guys that are here and allow for a few questions and stuff. I'll cover 3 areas of my artistic or creative journey. So sort of early days, mid-career, and then currently projects and creative outputs I'm involved with at the moment. I guess, I don't know, if you have questions, jot them down, put them in the chat and things like that for at the end. I am going to go in a slightly different direction to, I guess, what was advertised. I will obviously speak from a Māori artist perspective, but I think there's room there for people like other people to come in and speak to that. You know, Rob, Ruha, Macy, Stan, Niuē, you know, like they've really been trailblazing in that space. So yeah, I've got a few things that might be interesting to people tuning in. Yeah, so kia ora. So this, yeah, first section is just going to be around where I grew up and how I got into music before moving down to Wellington in the Conservatorium. So, yeah, I grew up in a small town called Taumarunui. There's a picture there from the southern side, kind of the Taupo side, looking back across that area. The maunga in the background is Hukurangi, and that valley and stuff leads into Taumarunui. Taumarunui being in the King Country, for those who aren't familiar, or the Rohe Pōtai, as it's often referred to as well. I did a little bit of instruction on piano and guitar. I went to St. Pat's School there, but nothing kind of formal as such during that sort of stage. And even at high school, I didn't really take music. I mean, this might sound funny speaking to music teachers, sorry. Yeah, it was not how I was introduced to music. So I kind of, everyone in our family played something, mum's side of the family. And yeah, I guess the music was a kind of celebration and a way for everyone to get together. And like myself and my cousins and I would supposed to be in bed and stuff, but would kind of be sneaking around in the hallway and looking at our parents and grandparents and everyone sort of like singing, and yeah, that was kind of what music was to me. Like, it wasn't the kind of at that point, you know, like that was the attraction and the memory I had. And then later on when I went to school and stuff, I ended up, you know, like I said, a little bit of piano and guitar, but again, funnily enough, it was just sort of, it was all a bit too formalized, I think, is the, I don't know if that's the way to, I was jamming. My mum had started to show me a few 3 chords on the guitar when I was about 6. And so that kind of really, yeah, got me into actually playing with instruments, playing around with different things, spoons, ukuleles. You know, later on, she joined a country music club when I was about 14, and that's where I kind of was introduced to the bass, which is my primary instrument. Or what I studied at the conservatorium on. Yeah, so much more an ear player, much more sort of organic, and just, yeah, from being around music in a non-professional way. Before I left Taumarunui, I worked in the freezing works part-time, and also in the shearing sheds as a wool presser. Yeah, I didn't even kind of apply to the jazz school myself. That was my mum. she she put the unbeknown to me, she had put the found the music school and had sent it an application away. So she was, yeah, she was keen for me to go and pursue music as a career and stuff, and that's kind of how I went ended up down at the conservatorium. But prior to that, I'd been happy in the freezing works and in the shearing sheds with my whānau and stuff. Like, you know, music was a kind of hobby thing. I'd actually, when I was 16, I jumped into my uncle's covers band. He left, went to Australia, that kind of classic thing. This was probably in the early 90s. And so, yeah, I started playing with his old band and playing in the pub and random gigs around Taumarunui and Turangi. And so I was happy with that. You know, at that point, that was kind of like cool. But yeah, my mum had other ideas. So I ended up going down to Wellington. So let me sorry. Yeah, so that sort of led into what became I guess my formal training. I like I said, I was at the freezing works and stuff. So the funny thing about my audition at the time was that I was still working there, and I got a call. I think it was from someone at the conservatorium saying that they had a position for a bass player. One of the bass players had pulled out of the course, so could I make it down for an audition? So I went down there. At the time, I only had oh well, I got the day off work. I raced down there. I had 3 strings on my bass at the time. I had a full set of strings in my case, but only 3 strings on the bass at the time. I got there. It was a Paul Dine, maybe Colin Hemmingson, and I'm not too sure who else was there. Paul Dine was the head of the school at the time. So when I opened my bass up and stuff, you know, and he saw that there was 3 strings on there, he was like, "Oh, do you need to you know, put, you know, another string up, like, you know, restring it and stuff." And it was just G string that was had busted. And I was like, "Yeah, no, I'll be fine. I don't even use that one anyway." So it was just like pretty random, like straight out of the country down to the conservatorium. I'm sure this, you know, you guys are all music teachers. This probably caused a few laughs in the staff room that day. But yeah, so that was pretty funny. I I did the audition. I restrung the bass because Paul was quite keen that I put more strings on it. I restrung that, and yeah, did the audition, and then I was well, actually, the other thing that they did for me, because um, you know, I didn't have that formal background, was the ear training test. Paul just sat at the piano and was just like very patiently and you know, calmly was like, now Rio, is this a happy or a sad sound? And then he'd play the chord. And then I had to say, um, that's sad. And then he did the next chord. They were like, is this happy or a sad sound? Like, so that's how I did my ear training test. That's obviously skipped theory and sight reading. But yeah, at the end of it, they were like, yep, you can, this was a Friday. And they were like, yeah, you can start on Monday. And I was like, oh, no, I can't start on Monday. I'm still at work. So luckily there was another bass player at the time who I'd met prior, Matt Tui, who was already living in Wellington and was able to. So I said, oh, could the other bass player start? Because I need to get back to work. I need to find out where I'm going to live, how this all works and stuff. The reason I'm kind of going into these details and possibly maybe interesting for the teachers is just that the kind of backgrounds really, you know, of different people who are coming into these kind of formal settings. So, you know, yeah, I was coming out of the bush from freezing worker job into a conservatorium, which was like so random. And yeah, so then the following year I re-auditioned, and in between that following year, Paul had, in his beautiful, generous way, sent me up a tape. It was actually on tape, a C90 tape with because I hadn't even really listened to any jazz. This is the other funny thing. It's like I knew a walking bass line, which I could do on the E and the A string, you know, and that's why I was like, I don't need the G. It's like I can just walk this bass line of blues. So anyway, yeah, Paul sent me up a tape with some notes about who was on the recordings, the songs that they were. I remember the first time I put it on, I was like, wow, these guys are out of key and out of time. Because it's like, if you haven't listened to jazz before, it's like, you know, when they play outside the key, you know, side slipping and stuff, it is jarring if you've never kind of heard that. And then yeah, polyrhythmic ideas across the time, you know, is also jarring when you've only heard sort of stuff on the radio. So yeah, it was cool. I was, you know, that was again, the point there is like the generosity of Paul Nine and the staff, you know, for taking the time. And that happened right throughout the you know, 3.5, 4 years I was there. They were always that kind of made allowances, like understood that like I would have to write out all of the keys, you know, before I'd start the exams and stuff, because I couldn't just read it off the sheet and quickly understand it. I'd have to go back and figure out what key center was there, you know. So yeah, they allowed me to have kind of extra, like 2 hours extra on theory exams and stuff. Just because yeah, they were cool. Yeah, so from there I ended up starting, you know, I started on the journey of the conservatorium. And then which was pretty cool, challenging every time it came up to theory classes and reading. That was always like a challenge that never really went away the whole time I was there, because it was always difficult and backfooting stuff, you know. I remember Dan Ubesley, who was in my year in our first year, he's a saxophonist, or he plays bass now, but he was talking about like tritone substitutions and stuff in like year one. It was just like, bro, so yeah, it was pretty daunting, and that definitely kind of challenged the way I kind of went through, like, experienced the course, like or the studies. Like obviously playing and stuff was cool. Like once I got my head around and like was immersed in it, that was cool. And I remember some sort of amazing performance workshops that Chris was part of, and some of the groups that were performing around Wellington around that time, Syzygy and stuff, like which were just like awesome, back, I think, that Wellington sort of peak. And yeah, so again, just mentioning this just because of that diversity of learners and stuff, so that was quite challenging in terms of staying with the program, because I was just like, man, I'm just not getting, like, I still, to this day, I can't sight read well. I can slowly go through. I can charts are sweet, like if they're, with the chord symbols and stuff up there, but dots are still like, and then the theory, if anyone knows about jazz, it's just as kind of disciplined and complex as classical. Well, it draws a lot of classical theory, so it's a lot to take on when you've never jumped in there. so yeah, and then I guess that was all cool. Was playing lots, and then when I got to my third year, the final year, so I did the foundation and then had done, so I was at this stage, I was into my fourth year of studies. I was playing in sort of 3 other external bands, different bands, kind of all sorts, jazz bands, covers bands, whatever. I was also doing 30 hours a week in a part-time job. I had this really crazy experience with student loans and allowances when I started on the foundation course, where they took, the course only lasted 6 months, and they took about 5 months before they even processed and had payments coming in for me. So and that was to do with the just change to loans and stuff from everyone else being free. It was like, so we were the kind of test group, and they hadn't been able to work out like how to, they wanted 2 incomes to means test, and I came from like a solo mum family, so that was an issue for them. I thought it would have been an immediate sort of qualification, but they couldn't kind of figure it out with the processes that they had. So I had to get my nan to supply her income details as well. Yeah, it was a huge rigmarole, and again, like, it was tough to stay with the course with all that stuff going on in the background. So subsequently, that meant that the next years I just took full loans, because I didn't want to deal with the whole student loan debacle, which meant that I graduated with a nice hefty student loan bill. It's like, which I still have mostly. I don't know. I actually just wanted to go to jail maybe for a year or 2 and just have it wiped. I was like, oh yeah, I'll just go practice and learn how to sight read maybe. So, but yeah, so that's why, sorry, going back to the part-time job, that's why I was working sort of as well. But all of that really sort of accumulated into like a breakdown, really. So this is kind of where it diverts a little bit, and I thought maybe going into a bit of the mental health stuff might be helpful for educators and students. So yeah, I ended up having a episode which was I had to go into hospital, withdraw from studies, do the whole process of that, and then try to come back, finish studies, do the degree extra bit, which was totally kind of not doable by that stage, because yeah, there was the whole, well, there was all of that part of the stress and stuff, and then there was all the drugs and alcohol and other things, which are just part of the scene as well. So the accumulation of all of that meant that, like, yeah, just kind of burnt out, broke down, had what they called a drug-induced psychosis. I don't know if you're still there, Chris, when that at the conservatorium during that time, but yeah. So from there, I kind of couldn't really continue with the studies like that, and they also had me on medication and stuff for that acute kind of phase. So for about 12 months afterwards, you know, which had all of the kind of messed up side effects and stuff, or direct effects, really. They're not, they're directly related to actually taking medication. So all of that pretty much kind of made it really difficult to finish the degree study. So I finished the advanced diploma. That was cool. And then, yeah, just ended up kind of, well, during that time of being at the conservatorium, I had met Warren and Ricky, and we kind of had started to form Trinity Roots in that time. So yeah, coming out of the conservatorium, we went into the first kind of major original band that I'd kind of been part of, and yeah. So now, sorry, I think now we're into, oh no, we're still, oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, so that's Warren and Ricky and myself, and this was pretty much just after finishing at the conservatorium, so early years in Wellington. We played a lot of, well, we rehearsed for like 6 months before we did our first gig. Again, I sort of bring these things up because I don't know if anyone rehearses anymore. No, I'm just kidding. Like, it feels like you know, music students and stuff today, and people who are into music, it's all real instant, and like, you know, hey, like, it seems like it's a real yeah, things are just like, you just put it up on the social media and it could blow up, and then you have to do shows. Whereas I mean, you know, everyone here would know that and I think it's the better way, is that you just grind it out. Like, you just play shows, you learn how to play together, keep refining your songs, your material, your dynamics as a group. I mean, Chris was on our first tour, actually, when we did this tour with Jonathan Crayford as well. And that was crazy. Like, Chris and Ricky shared a drum kit, a single kick drum, I think it was. Like, you guys were set up on either side of the kick drum. It was like, wow. It was like, yeah, it was awesome. Apologies now. What was this? Oh, yeah, yes, because of the amount of sort of rehearsing we'd done before we even did a gig. We were also in another group, like when I mentioned the 3 bands. So we had a covers gig that we were doing at a place called Tato, which Chris will also be super familiar with. But and we played every weekend for about 2 years, like Friday and Saturday night. And so again, you know, that real I don't know, there's just no substitute for putting in those hours together. So yeah, again, just kind of trying to emphasize the importance of like the rehearsals and having that time and putting in those hours together as a group. So that, I think, really set us up for later on when we started to record our own stuff. Just noting the time and quickly looking at my notes. So are we still going all right here? Cool. Cool, yeah. And so with this group, I mean, yeah, in the early days, we won like a Battle of the Bands, which was at Big Uni. And from that, we ended up winning some recording time at a small studio called Inca Studios in Wellington with Mike Gibson. That was his studio. And we went on to record our first EP. And then we kept on playing and writing, and then, you know, put together enough material to get our first album together. And then in typical fashion, I know I'll change some of these. We were still jamming, doing lots of stuff, and again, you know, sort of a bit more stress with the album stuff, and then coupled with the kind of unhealthy lifestyle. And I had my second episode, which was like super annoying. It's like, so yeah, that was a bit of a tough one for what we were doing at the time. I'd kind of written off the first one as just being sort of like, yeah, drug-induced psychosis type thing. And then after the second one, that was kind of upgraded to a bipolar diagnosis, which was, I think I was about 25 at that stage. Yeah, so lots to deal with there. We finished the album and stuff. We went up to this place, Orua Wharoa, up in the Wairarapa, and you know, classic sort of naive kind of like, yeah, we'll just hire a whole studio, chuck it in a truck, take it up and into the Wairarapa and set up and you know, in the middle of nowhere in this old homestead, which was actually super cool. But yeah, it was pretty funny. But yeah, that was cool. We got that done. Again, I was sort of on medication, which was the sort of the typical sort of cycle with that sort of thing, you know. And so that made the recordings quite difficult, but we kind of got through all of that stuff and luckily, and then yeah, released the album, which was cool, you know. Now what happened? Sorry, I'm just checking my notes. Yeah, so I guess the takeaways from this would be sort of like, you know, again, we were doing all this as an indie, well, not indie music, but independent artists. So this, yeah, this might be helpful to people in understanding that, like, back at this time, oh, that's the time I finished. Oh, I'll take that off, sorry. Yeah, I'll leave it like that. So, yeah, we were doing it all independently, which is kind of, I don't know, maybe people are doing that these days, but it wasn't so common then. Everyone was trying to get on a label, you know, a publisher and things like that. So we did approach, I think his name was Malcolm Black. I think he used to be on the, I can't think of the New Zealand, it wasn't Creative New Zealand, it was the other one, the more commercial, the more commercial arm of the government stuff. And yeah, he was kind of, the first thing he said was that they were interested in sort of sales and stuff like that. So that kind of told us straight away that our organic approach was probably not lining up with what they were doing. So that was cool. It just made us kind of commit to the idea that we would function as independent group. And the things that come with that, obviously, is that you have to kind of have some business acumen and understand the music business, understand promotion, marketing, your audience, you know, funding. So I mentioned Creative New Zealand and stuff like that, like how to get funding. I mean, we were really super lucky when we did the album recordings that Paul Huggins, who's sadly passed away now, but was a real kind of legend in the scene, you know, music store owner and stuff. He, after hardly kind of knowing us, but had heard us play and stuff, remortgaged his house and gave us 20K at the time to finish the album recording, which we paid back. But just amazing sort of like generosity and belief from people who were sort of following us at the time. And yeah, I guess again, just to be helpful for educators and stuff, and for students, it's understanding that it's a business, music business, you know, and you really do, if you want to make a career, especially here in Aotearoa with that, you really need to get your head around what the music business is, or business, you know, and how to make that work for you. So yeah, we were really lucky. Like in saying that, we did really well. We had really great gigs. You know, Chris was part of those, and you know, a lot of people came to shows then. We went overseas and we played shows overseas, and managed to pick up, you know, a couple of awards in that from that first albums, which, you know, that all has that kind of accumulative effect of like more people coming to shows, more revenue in, and we were able to, you know, put together a second album and a third album after that even. Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's hard. It's definitely a tricky way to go, but it's kind of the pros and cons, I guess, are that you're in control of your own artistic license, I guess, so across everything. So you know, like for instance, on the next bit, I'll talk a little bit about you know, working with different New Zealand and international artists who were signed to labels, and sort of seeing how they had to navigate that space with the demands and expectations of the labels, because they've put in money for the recordings, and so they want singles and stuff that sells, you know. Yeah, it's a whole different beast. Whereas if you're independent, you kind of play shows that you want to yeah, support causes that you believe in, all of those kinds of things. There's like heaps of really awesome things to it. But just know that you also have a lot of work that's going to come on to you and the group, and that can cause tension, and you know, some workplace dramas. Yeah. So yeah, but I'm an advocate for it. I think, yeah, if you can do it, and if you've got the energy and the drive, 100% do it that way. And there's so many more outlets for that now, you know. There used to be some really cool music shows back in the early 2000s. You could like, I was just thinking we could go up to Auckland. Clark Gayford was one of the hosts back then. I can't remember what the show was, but you could play live on that show, which played at about 10 o'clock at night on a Friday night. Go and have an interview, play live, and then, well, we'd play at Galatos the next night. And it was a good way to kind of promote shows and stuff. So, but outside of that, there wasn't too much. There was no YouTube. There was barely, well, yeah, people were still figuring out what an email was. I think it was Internet Explorer. That's pretty much it. No, so yeah, everything was like analog. Like you print out flyers, put them out yourself, postering. Yeah, I remember Ricky and I cruising up and down Cuba Street, just putting flyers on cars, and talking loudly about this awesome band that was playing on Friday night. Like, and just as we'd pass groups of people who would be just pretending like we were having a conversation really loudly about an awesome band, just trying to subliminally drop the gig into them as they went past. And then, yeah, just doing lots of miles on the road, and like up and down the country, which was also pretty awesome. What am I? Oh, solo projects. Yeah. So we had a bit of after about 8 years of playing together, we did a bit of a hiatus / split. And yeah, went on to do some solo projects. So which included working with well, some of the highlights being like Jonathan Crayford and Chris O'Connor in there at that in that mix as well. But yeah, Jonathan, amazing. I don't know. I'm sure he's known to everyone who's going to check this out. But yeah, amazing artist. Like a savant. Almost like I think he was like only 16 or 17 when he was out on the road with Blurter. You know, yeah. His father's a great pianist and musician. His whole family are creatives and artists and stuff. So yeah, he definitely is as a highlight of musicians I've played with. Chris, I already mentioned in various shapes and forms with those guys. Scribes of Ra, which was a Afrobeat group with there's about 30 of us, like everyone who was in Wellington at the time. Fat Freddy's Drop, so recorded, toured with them. Omega Supreme, which is Taj Mahal's son. Oh, now I'm gonna completely forget his first name. I'm on Mahal and his sister Diva as well. So also went to Red Bull Music Academy during that time. After the Trinity Roots stuff, I went to Toronto and Cape Town. Well, Toronto was the first part. It was a 2-week. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Red Bull Music Academy, but yeah, amazing sort of setup. They would have 2 weeks of lectures and sort of just jamming and hanging out, and everyone that they would bring in, they were just like, yeah, crazy, amazing producers, performers, artists. Tony Allen happened to be, so you know, I was talking about the Afrobeat band. So Tony Allen is kind of like the drummer. And Afrobeat kind of started it, or started how that's played. And yeah, he happened to be there that year, and we got to jam together and record, which was pretty amazing, and something that I can still kind of skite about with the Afrobeat guys. So that was in Toronto, and then I got invited back to go to another 2-week Red Bull session, but this was for recording, and so did that with in Cape Town, and with Arlo Black in the front there, and Wally Buttero behind him on the keys. Arlo Black, if you're not familiar, he's the I need a dollar. That guy, plus many other things. He's super talented MC. Yeah, he plays trumpet, as you can see, and yeah, sings and stuff. Wally Buttero is amazing. I want to say French African musician, keyboard player. He was part of heaps of crazy groups in the UK. Oh man, who immediately dropped out of my head. Oh yeah, an amazing synth player and programmer. Yeah, he also became a session musician for Island Records and was based in the Caribbean. So he played on heaps of the Bob Marley and the Wailers albums, Grace Jones, all of those, all of the incidental sort of synth sounds. Wally, yeah, he was. If you ever got into the early emulators, the ones that you could plug in Pro Tools and stuff, he had his own patches named after him and stuff. Yeah, he's a legend. He's Talking Heads. He was an unofficial. He didn't tour with them. He didn't like live touring. He still doesn't like live touring, but he was yeah, recording non-playing member of Talking Heads. He produced Herbie Hancock, heaps of like he's just like so crazy and super lovely, and yeah, it was pretty amazing to spend 2 weeks with him, and every day after we'd finish our kind of jams and recordings, would go into the studio and he would just regale us with you know, crazy stories, recordings like with Herbie Hancock or whoever the other artists had played with. So yeah, who else was in that mix? So how are we going for time? I think we're kind of getting up there. Well, I've decided to go over since it's just us. Like we're gonna need to do the Q&A unless you want to. but yeah. I guess the other big group after that was Breaks Co-op. So that Zane Lowe and Hamish Clark were the original sort of founders of Breaks Co-op. They put a live band together after they'd have the kind of crazy hit with the other side. And so toured with them here in New Zealand. And then they got picked up by Parlophone over in the UK, Parlophone being the Beatles, Pink Floyd, Radiohead, you know, like crazy label. After I talked about being indie, like it's like the slight upshot of getting on a label, if you get on an awesome label, is like, yeah, it's craziness. Like we did a private party at Glastonbury for the Parlophone sort of office, and with the guy who started Glastonbury on their farm and stuff, and we were on Top of the Pops, the proper one, the English one. We got played one of the last, you know, before it finished. The Late Late Show in Ireland, which is like the longest running talkback show in the world, I think it is. Yeah, we toured around Ireland and the UK quite a lot, a bit of Europe. We were living in in Westbourne Park, just around from Portobello Road, which was like, yeah, super amazing area. And just being in London around that time was cool. So that was yeah, part of the sort of scene at the time and things that were going on then. Let me just see what I've got. Yeah. In terms of current projects and creative outputs, so now we live in Rotorua, been here for about 8 or 9 years now. When I came up here, I was still doing a lot of gigs back in Wellington and around the place, probably for the first 2 years. Started to DJ more regularly because it was easier to sort of just get some things going as a DJ, and with only myself to sort of put together, and not knowing the scene here at Rotorua at the time. I was also kind of like just keen to just do other things really. So yeah, go off on some other creative journeys. And so kind of part of Fly My Pretties, Aldot, which was this Irish group. Jerry Paul, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Jerry. He kind of was part of the Cuba Street, I don't know if it was Cuba Street Carnival, but the later iterations of Cuba Street Festival. Jerry was part of that. He's a great musician, guitarist, writer. His mum's from Ireland, his dad's from a Kiwi. So he'd go back and forth between, and he got the collaboration together between Trinity Roots and his Irish band, and so they would come over. We've done quite a few tours with them. amazing stuff. Like they're amazing musicians, singer, fiddle player, flute player. I think that's all of them. Oh, and Jerry, who's guitar. But yeah, a bit like jazz. I'd never sort of really listened to traditional Irish music, didn't know what to make of it, but then getting to play it with the caliber of musicians, and yeah, it's amazing, and you can kind of hear the roots of like contemporary songwriting in today's music through like Pauline went to the equivalent of their sort of kohanga reo, so she speaks well, I think they call it Irish, I mean Gaelic, and I guess, like, but she speaks te reo, and she knows over 300 waiata in their language, and yeah, super amazing. So that's been an awesome collaboration of late. On a more personal level, I've been kind of getting into the digital storytelling side, so more interactive media, gaming, augmented reality, not so much AI. Everyone's going crazy on AI at the moment. I don't know. It's an interesting one, but yeah, we had we have a project called Titans of Aotearoa tour that's been in development pretty much since we moved up here, so like the last 8 years or so. It's a fact-based fiction gaming title based on Polynesian and Māori history. So that's been an amazing sort of project to be sort of chipping away at. It's yeah, across we're across, or I am across all the aspects of it. So people sometimes wonder if I'm just doing the musical and that kind of side of things, but involved in pretty much all aspects of it and developing the story and stuff. That's been super cool. And yeah, just to kind of do something fresh and different. And then, partway through this project, we had COVID. There was a global pandemic. So that led to, well, I guess the first 6 months to a year of just like killing brain cells, watching Netflix and The Tiger King and all of those kind of random things. And then ended up going into doing some real studies online first, and then at the Wānanga. And then that kind of led into some master's further studies. So I did a master's through Academy X, which I was saying to you guys earlier. That's Frances Valentine, who's an amazing sort of entrepreneur, businesswoman, educator. She was a teacher herself, and she came back to New Zealand and was kind of a little bit sort of lost in terms of, I think, well, I hope she doesn't paraphrase me in this, but she was just, yeah, not quite convinced about what was going on with technology and the teaching of that. And so she had been at media design school, and so she went off and created Tech Futures Lab, which is now called Academy EX. And yeah, I did some masters, or I did a master's in technological futures, which was random in a title, but it was around interactive media. And I did a project for our hapu on with an augmented reality card set. And funnily enough, it's for so our hapu is Hikairo ki Tongariro, which is up by Tongariro and Lake Rotoaira, if you're familiar with that area. And that's where the haka kamate, which everyone's been pretty familiar with in the last week, if not prior to that with all of the sports teams and the All Blacks and stuff, obviously. But yeah, we did a project together on the origins of that haka, but everyone, well, most people are more familiar with the composer, with Te Rauparaha for that haka, but we were the hapu, and our rangatira, Te Whararangi, was the one who shouted Te Rauparaha. So its first performance was to our hapu and to Te Whararangi, and then before it became, you know, the best known haka in the world or whatever. But yeah, so it was an interesting project to do because people don't often ask about that side of the story. So yeah, that was really cool. And again, yeah, just I guess the point of kind of talking about these things is just to around being an artist, I guess, and creativity, and not getting boxed into just this part of our creative outputs, like the musical parts. There's like so many crossovers into all the other arts as well, you know, and it's really fun to do. Like, you know, again, it's a little bit challenging learning about different disciplines and stuff, but it's super fun, and it, yeah, gets your brain going, and it gets all those creative juices going again, and yeah, you get to appreciate the other mediums and art forms and see the where things connect, but also how they solve problems, and you know, creatively and artistically. So it's, yeah, it's cool. I think oh, I just had like, I don't know, I thought we might be into Q&A at the moment, but like for a bit of a, I don't know, I guess a bit of looking at my big book of notes that I wrote up. um I don't know, today, I don't know, contemporary music, by contemporary, I mean just music that's being created today, at a pop level, I don't know, it's a little bit, I don't know, I don't want to sound too ancient, but it's funny, I think, I mean, you know, I think the only other genre that comes close to jazz is hip hop, and its ability to incorporate any and all other uh, musical styles, and create something new with that. Um, Funnily enough, though, I think the impacts of like licensing and being sued by artists has really kind of limited a lot of that early creativity that happened in hip hop. You know, yeah. So I think, I don't know. This is just my own opinion, but I think there's like a lot of real kind of standard sounds that you hear in that genre now in terms of beats and stuff, like literally out of GarageBand, you know, just kick, snare, and hats that come with your, you know, audio software, like at a really sort of kind of base level. And it makes sense if that's the case, because like, you know, if you're sampling and someone catches you, you know, you could be paying lots of kind of money for um, depending on how what you've sampled, who decides to kind of be crazy about it. And yeah, so at one level there's kind of a bit of a homogeny, I guess, maybe, on those kinds of things. On the flip side of that, some people are doing really crazy stuff to pull that apart, like, you know, running things through guitar amps and all sorts of kind of things to sort of change the tones and the sounds and stuff. Yeah, sorry, I'll just check my notes. Yeah, I think live is always going to be the way to go. Like, you'll never be able to, I think, whatever the technology is doing, I mean, at least right now, I don't think live will ever be surpassed in terms of that exchange between an audience and the players. And um, so I would still advocate, and something that I guess I took from the conservatorium in those years was to yeah, learn your craft, like play, like learn how to play, like play live lots and be comfortable doing that. And that will serve you well. Like, yeah. Yeah, and I'm just looking at the tech. Oh, Waiata albums that were, just chuck that down in terms of like really awesome sort of in a pop culture sense of like I think what Hinewehi has done by bringing all of those, recent artists together and putting their songs out in the reo is amazing on many levels. So that's been really cool. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't really been in the scene enough again to sort of comment on what everyone else is doing. I know there's been some kind of awesome stuff. I saw Snarky Puppy's got a tour coming up, so that would be I'd be interested in seeing that. I don't know if either of you guys went out to Herbie Hancock or was it Stanley Clark or I kind of missed all those. I'm like, oh, the other thing is like I'm a dad and stuff too, like now, and like, I'm 50. I'm like sort of like I'm a fossil. And it's like I'm like, yeah, not quite. I'm adjacent to what's going on that's fresh and new. Well, yeah, and I'm happy with that too. Like I think it's kind of cool to step out of the way and let all the new stuff come through. Like, make room and make space and like, yeah, just like, you know, here you go. Yeah. But that might be our hour, maybe, roughly. Wow, I spoke a lot. Sorry.
Oh,
Kia
no,
ora.
yeah, it's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that story. I think, yeah, for me, it's really interesting to hear, how important it is to just, as a, from the teacher perspective to, give your students those extra tools and time to help them get there, like you had help at uni.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that you know, holistic kind of like obviously it's tough, like and even tougher now, with the way um things are in the or I imagine things are in the education space, But if you're able, like I don't want to like, I'm sure music teachers already have a lot on, but maybe just having that bit of reflection and sort of awareness for different students and stuff and Māori Pasifika students for sure, they will have some interesting sort of like dynamics at home and maybe like, who knows, everyone, but I guess there is sort of I mean, even when because I was at the NZ Music Commission for over 10 years, I think, and a lot of that was at the lower decile schools, amazing people there, but like, limited resources, time, pressures, like amazing students as well, like really talented. But funnily, like there was one school in the Wellington region that I used to go to, and I'd have to kind of walk around like a Olympic stadium to get to the music room, which was way away from the school out the back, where it wasn't noisy for everyone else. But the realities of their sort of location was that they were putting all those kids into sports. That was the out that they felt the kids could do. And the music department was just like a sort of nice to have sort of, yeah. And it was a shame because like those same kids were like just killing it in the band room. So good. Like, oh, Chris, man, there were these two Samoan brothers who had the craziest reggae rhythm section. Like, I've never heard before or since. The way that they would lock into it was almost like they would play like kind of log drum rhythms, like the one brother on the drum kit, and then his brother who was on the bass would just kind of lock in with it. It was like so crazy. But they would only come to like one session every couple of weeks because the other weeks they'd be away with the volleyball team, then the rugby team, then so could never get all of the group together, which was a shame because they were like super interesting. Like I would have loved to have seen them sort of develop that further. But yeah, the school was actually taking money out of the rest of the school to put this sort of full training facility into the school. Like it was literally like you could have been Olympic training in the school grounds. Yeah, it's pretty wild. But yeah, But yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me. No,
Thanks,
pretty cool.
Rio. Thanks for sharing your story. Incredible to hear. Yeah, incredible to hear. Amazing to have accompanied you for some of that journey. And I've loved where you're going and where you've taken it. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thanks, man. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, you guys are always, I mean, yourself and the groups that you played with are always pretty inspiring. Like, yeah, Syzygy is still one of my favorite, I think, groups to have been exposed to in Wellington. Yeah, I mean, Jeff, you know, Henderson, all of those guys, like, man, it was so outside of my um realm of like anything, like, you know, again, coming from the King Country, like, you know, as far removed as you could be from free jazz, you know, and it was like, it was amazing. Like, oh, I would look at these performances like with like Jeff Hughes and stuff down at oh man, I can't remember the little sidebar under Mid City. I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember the place. Yeah.
That's where I saw Grant Winterburn first
Is
jam.
it Metro?
Metro, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very. And like Grant Winterburn was jamming a sort of little Hammond keyboard thing, just the keyboard bit, and had a cigarette in his mouth, one in his hand, and one burning in the ashtray on his keyboard. And he was just like ripping it up. It was so crazy. And like this is from sheltered King Country Tamarunui into the metro, and just being like, wow. I mean, yeah, I really I loved it. I was just like, wow, this is like so like thanks, mum. And big thanks to the mums out there that like, yeah, because it was a real liberating kind of mind-opening experience. So yeah, yeah, it was so transformational, you know. And yeah, bro, I mean, having you guys there at the con, uh everyone that was there. I think I personally I feel that the Fever Hospital Conservatorium was the one. You know, it kind of lost its I don't know, charm, if you want to say that, when it moved to the main campus. Actually, because
Oh, the impact, that's the impact architecture has, on music and learning and performing. Those horrible prefab sort of office-like fluorescent lighting rooms to do music in were ghastly.
So crazy,
yeah.
You know, like the Fever Hospital was not intended to be a conservatorium, but because it was a building that, I don't know, had some charm, like it was designed in an era that was it wasn't so much like industrial, but
it was a place of life and death.
Life and death, bro. That's how Lee Jackson ran it. if you
maybe a place of healing too, maybe.
Yeah. Well, also I think because we had the classical school there, we had those performance workshops every week. Every second week it would be combined with the classical student, and we were isolated off in our own space. Everyone kind of stayed up there and got to know each other. You'd all kind of mingle, all the different years. All classical and jazz would be in the one common room, and it was really cohesive. You know, like it really brought the school together in a cohesive manner, which I didn't really. Hey, hey, yeah, it didn't really work so well in that campus situation where people just stayed in their own. What I saw when I would visit was that people kind of tended to stay in their own year groups, and they would go off away from the kind of music school area during the breaks. And when we were up at up Mount Vic, there was nothing else up there. You just you take your lunch to, you know, to the con, do some hours, couple hours practice beforehand, maybe do your classes, stay there, have lunch, hang out with all the other students, get to know everyone pretty much, you know, from every year. And yeah, it was just like, it was a, I don't know, more community feeling, kind of like music should, like, you know, the arts should be like that collective communal kind of vibe. Like I think it, yeah, like
I've got a bit of a burning question, man, and potentially the answer could last for another hour. So
yeah.
you don't go as deep or as not as you want. But I'm just wondering if music played much of a role in your healing journey when you were going through your breakdowns and trying to sort of figure out a path out of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you know, like I mentioned Jonathan, because when I met Jonathan, I was sort of coming out like, but whenever I've had these episodes and stuff, it's been like about a 2-year journey. So there's the extra episode, there's the kind of the dealing with kind of medication, because I don't like I'll do the meds at the time, but then I get weaned off. Like I just am not a fan of that approach. It doesn't work for me, but I know it works for lots of other people. I prefer to sort of come off everything, like try to sort of detox of everything, and then just keep working on other tools, you know, sleeping more, resting, physical activity, other things to just self-regulate and yeah, and be mindful and of stresses and things. So yeah, that cycle is like 2 years. Like first year is kind of like the craziness of what's going through, and then it's usually followed by like a quite full kind of depression for a year, and then that will kind of like slowly kind of I'll just have to ride that out. But yeah, music is that kind of thing that sort of has been helpful in that sense, and you know, sometimes too challenging as well in those periods, because it's like it's difficult to kind of focus on the music and stuff, and yeah, so it really depends at the time, but it's definitely been that kind of ongoing sort of hug. You know, it's that kind of like warm hug, like at times, you know, and I guess the only times it becomes challenging is when it's all kind of stuck in here. And I think, you know, sort of the depression stuff that kind of accompanies the episodes is all about being kind of stuck in here as well. Like it's a bit of a disconnect between, you know, head and heart. And so when those things kind of marry a bit more, kind of everything feels a little bit more clear, manageable, you know. Yeah. Hopefully that's not too on. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah.
I would understand the need to have to just stop.
Yeah.
To stop for the reasons that you suggest, as well as all of the connotations of being involved in music. If you've been doing it professionally, the late nights, the drugs and the alcohol, and the you know, pushing yourself to be better, and the pressures, and the I can imagine sometimes music would be the last thing you'd want to be doing if you're trying to find yourself and get some regulation going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there's a fun thing too. I think, you know, when I look back at that first episode and those days and stuff, and even the subsequent one, it was like, especially I think in the second one, between the first and the second, there's this real need to try and be like normal, you know, like because it just come out of nowhere. You know, it was a super scary, you know, and then there was this kind of almost like a knee-jerk over correction back into sort of like trying to do heaps of stuff, you know, yeah, perceivably normal, you know, kind of things. And, you know, in those early 2000s stuff, it was still, there's still quite a stigma around, you know, mental illness and stuff and mental health. Yeah, so it's, yeah, I mean, I've never kind of not talked, like if people know and have asked, you know, I'm happy to talk about it. I did get approached for certain campaigns and things. There was a couple of little music things where I sort of was happy to sort of go on camera about and stuff. But at the time, I was just really conscious of being kind of defined by it, by being sort of in front of these campaigns and stuff. That would just be the kind of default for people. So yeah, I guess I wasn't super kind of out about it, but you know, if people knew or if people asked, or in these kind of situations where I'm just talking about it amongst, you know, peers and other artists, it's like such a big part of being an artist. Like it was funnily enough, like I think in total I've probably had 5 or 6 episodes across like a 20-year span now. And the last time it happened, the doctor I was speaking to at the time was just like, they're starting, like the research and stuff is starting to show, they said it's like this kind of funny, well, not funny, but like, there's a lot of it, like it kind of like she was trying to suggest that it's a bit of a kind of part and parcel of like artistry and some kind, like not to say full-blown mental illness and stuff, but there is a bit of a connection between you know, might be kind of ADHD or, you know, on the spectrum to some degree, and they've found that more and more with artists, there is that sort of kind of area that they sort of tend to kind of float around. Actually, funnily enough, when I came back to the conservatorium after that first episode, and again, Paul Dine, super love for Paul, and he was my bass tutor at the time too. So when I came back in, he was just like, the sign of a true artiste. And he was like, he just like gave me like this real soft landing, because I was like so kind of lost, you know, and like on so many levels, you know. Yeah, that, yeah, because he was cool, they it made it like okay, you know, like I could just kind of relax around him at least, you know, and at the conservatorium, and yeah, and everyone was super cool about it up there. And I guess it's that kind of family whānau vibe that the Fever Hospital kind of created, because everyone was, yeah, you know, there was no kind of like, people probably knew, like everyone who was up at the con probably knew, you know, in some shape or form, but like it was never a big deal. And again, super lucky in that sense. And you know, yeah, just artists. Yeah, pretty funny.
Oh my gosh, yeah, thank you, God. This has really been really inspiring. Thank you so much.
No, awesome. Yeah, it didn't really dawn on me until after I was kind of like reading back through Chris and his email about what to speak about, and I started to write the notes, and then I was like, you know, when I thought about the whole conservatorium and stuff, then I was like, I should probably talk about this, you know, just as something to be sort of talked about, really, I guess. And in the, yeah, like I said, like artists, there's not a predisposition, but there's definitely a spectrum of like stuff, I think, you know, yeah, and that's kind of, I guess, what I'm saying with that is it's just kind of another thing of life, you know. I don't want to put normal on it, but it's just yeah, yeah, it's not defining, I guess, is another thing. It's like you can write your own story. Yeah. Cool.